Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. As an elite level runner and coach, I'm excited to introduce you to the All In Running Club. The All In Running Club exists to help you become a better runner. Whether you're a beginner, an elite runner, or anywhere in between, the mission of the All In Running Club is to give you the tools you need to find your success in running. Join today to take advantage of the 75% off yearly membership rate offer. Click the link below in the show notes to learn more. All right, so thanks, Faust, for being a guest on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Jerry, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So I'm really excited to talk to you because as I was telling you before we started recording, I've got family members that deal with depression and anxiety. I know a lot of people that deal with it, whether they're willing to admit it or not, right? And I know that you've seen that there's all different levels of it and everything. So, but you've been practicing as a therapist for 30 years. Like, why 30 years ago did you say this is what I want to focus on, and why is it like turned into depression, anxiety, and your books and all that?
It's just a little over 30 years in private practice. I came out of grad school in 79, but this has always been me. This isn't my love for people. I'm still, I'll turn 69 at the end of the week, and I've been doing this, and I'm still seeing people. I'm still, doing the same things I've always done. When you can help someone through a difficult time, when you can have them open up and watch that whole process occur, where they come in closed and afraid and conflicted, and then they begin to open up to you, and then they trust you, and then they start, telling you all about themselves. Just through that process, they start to realize how strong they can be. Right. We start pushing some things aside and moving some good things in place. So I still love that process. It's something I look forward to yet.
Well, and one of the things that you said, like getting to that nugget inside of people, right? And a lot of times as a health coach myself, I know a lot of times it's nothing that's special that I'm doing other than just helping them navigate their own path, right? Is that pretty common for you too?
It is. But what I do is, I'm kind of the guide, if you will. We're chopping down the growth that's on all those paths. But the way it works is, as we start, I'm the guy in there chopping with them, and then what we're doing is hoping is to give them the reins later on. I'm behind saying, hey, good job, and maybe you want to try this one, but they're the ones doing the chopping. And I always tell people I'm in business with you to eventually be out of business with you.
Right.
Different concept than typical consumership, if you will. Right. So, I just want them to understand that. And I teach all the time. We all have these powers. Everything's inside us. It's already there. We've piled so much junk on top of it that, right. All that external stuff that, once we get through that, they start to see that, wait a minute, I do have the power to deal with it. These things are going to keep on coming up in my life, but I can do this.
Yeah. And so is that where the books that you've got, the series is like the Fix Yourself series, is that where that whole title came from? It's just the realizing that really the people are doing it themselves. You're just guiding them to the.
Yeah. When I wrote the first book, my feeling has always been, and I've told people this, you're not as weak as you think you are. It feels weak. Anxiety and depression make you feel like you are a weak person. Because, it's that whole neurotransmitter thing in the brain, and you can't think through things, and your emotions are awry, and physically you're just tight, or you're just, locked up in the dark room. You're facing nothing. So you think you're weak. My premise has always been, no, you're not. That's something you have. That's not who you are. It's something you have. And since it's something you have, we can go get it and and I'm going to teach them how to do that.
Yeah. And so is that the process way of life, like formula that you've come up with, is like everybody can, and it's sort of the way I do with health coaching is like, I tell people, I don't have a standard, like 1 through 10, do these 10 things and you're going to be healthy. Like everything is a different, path for every person.
Well, In the latest book, is what I'm telling them. We talk about depression, and one of the reasons practitioners are not successful, or at least not as successful as we should be, is because we're trying to use canned programs for people. I'm depressed. I go to the doc. Doc says, take this. Maybe they get you to someone for counseling. Maybe they don't. If you get to the counselor goes back to the textbook and says, well, these are all the things. And then, of course, the person feels invalidated, and and they're not working. And I always say, I call the depression the life thief, and I say we all have our personal life thief. So when you get to me, I'm going to go through everything about you. I'm going to know you inside and out, so I can define what that thief's all about. And then you're going to be able to understand it, and then pick through the pieces that are specific to you. We talk to the next guy and he says, well, I got that. And say, yeah, I have that too, but it stops right there. We really need to open it up, define what that whole monster looks like. Then, and there's some things that are going to be, in there all the time. It's a physical condition. We know that. Right. We know we have to treat the body first. If I tell you, well, let's think your way through depression, and your body is just torn up and you're almost listless. Well, I'm not doing you any good here. So we get the body, we get that out of the way. Make sure there are no thyroid issues or hormonal issues or gut issues, things that can play into depression. We get those out of the way first. Then we start taking life things apart, and we start looking at how we're going to get your body healthy, and your emotions can take a backseat to your brain for a while instead of firing off, and your brain's got to catch up later. It's the same in a lot of ways, but then there's that personal component, and that has to be addressed. Otherwise, the person will come back.
Right. And so that's for the people listening. That's like if you're going to a doctor and you feel like they're just treating your symptoms and they're not really getting to anything that's going to be a long-term solution, then like you probably need to go see somebody else.
Well, you hit on a great point, right? And I actually do a whole chapter in the depression book on finding doctors and counselors and that type of thing. And one of the things I hit on is that we have to understand that the medical model today is run primarily by insurance companies and hospitals. Right. So you go to the doc, he wants you in and out of there in about 7 minutes. Right. You cannot diagnose depression in 7 minutes. Yeah. You can say, all right, you're not leaving your room. You don't want to get up in the morning. We can get all the classic signs, and then they're going to give you an antidepressant and send you on your way. I tell them, the doctor works for you. When you walk in that room, that examination room, he's your employee, and you need to demand that he listen to you and let him know we're not rushing through this. Yeah, I want to tell you all these things, and then I want to walk out of here with a direction that makes some sense. Same thing with counseling. Counselors can get to the point where we think we know everything. We've seen it all before. So when you come in, we can jump over a few things, and that's not where the personal component lies. So, it really, I tell people, you've got to be your advocate. And what I talk about in depression is, since depression has a tendency to shut the mind down, so to speak, in terms of its communicative abilities, take someone in there, grab an advocate, if you will, go into the doctor and say, hey, this is what he or she is feeling. This is what's going on. Because once the doctor starts talking over you, or even the counselor, you're going to stop talking.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask about, because if somebody who's dealing with maybe not depression, but definitely anxiety, and they go into the doctor, and I mean, a lot of us have heard of it. You get the white coat syndrome, and your blood pressure goes up, and so it's like, oh my, why am I have high blood pressure? It's because you get nervous around the doctor, right, or the nurse,
and you don't realize you're trying to get out of there, right? And he's trying to get you out of there, and that's a horrible combination. Yeah, and so what I have my people do is, you're going to go to the doctor. I say, okay. Because hopefully they get to me before they hit medication. Okay, you're going to the doctor. Let's make up your list. These are all the symptoms. Okay. And these are the things you have to tell them, and you don't want to rush. Anxiety has a tendency to shorten doctor appointments because people can't sit in the room long enough. And by the time you're in the doctor's office, you have gone through the waiting room for 20 minutes, a half hour, whatever it is, if you're lucky.
Yep.
Then you go to the examination room where the nurse or PA comes in and takes your vitals and does all that stuff. Then you wait 10 or 15 minutes more. By the time the doctor gets there, you can't wait to get out. Depression, on the other hand, you'll shut down long before the doctor comes in.
Right.
So I always tell people, take someone with you.
Yeah.
I so-and-so with me, they're going to help me because I'm not sure what I'm doing here.
Right. Well, and I love the list thing too, because immediately the thing I thought of when you said list was like, I always tell people go to the grocery store with a list so you don't wind up buying stuff out of emotional.
Exactly.
Like, or advertising, right? Because they're advertising it to you, right? So it's like, oh, well, I should buy that because it's going to make me feel good, right? Because the Snickers is when you're hungry, you need to get that when we all know that's not healthy for us.
Right. And it's just what I tell people. The list is so important. Mm-hmm. And even in the book, I list all the various symptoms of all the kinds of depression, your seasonal depression and clinical and,
right.
Postpartum, all those things. And I say, when you put all the symptoms I have in the book together, you're probably going to come up with about 40 or so.
Oh, wow.
And I say, okay, and there's overlap in various types of depression. Sure. You're going to get that, but sit down with someone and don't just look at them and say, yeah, that's me. Take it all apart and make your list. I've given you that template, if you will. Make your list. That's what you go to the doctor or psychiatrist or counselor or whoever. That's what you go with. Put that down on paper. Journal about what you're doing if you can. Right. That often helps because you can see what you can list what's happening, your progress, and where you want to go next. So, those lists can be very important, particularly for people suffering from conditions like anxiety and depression, where the mind just doesn't get a chance to work efficiently.
Well, and you mentioned something earlier as well, and I want to make sure we hit on this because I know you wrote a chapter in one of your books on the intellect versus emotion of making the decisions and understanding how to overcome the anxiety and depression because I would assume it's from the emotional standpoint, we can just get in a very big negative spiral that makes the depression seem a lot bigger than it probably really is.
And that's a great point. When I talk about, I call it I over E, intellect over emotion. That doesn't mean I want people, to be a Mr. Spock here and there are no emotions. Right. I want them to just get their brain operating before the emotion. And if you look in society, what's happening now, we're all reacting all over the place, and then we either don't think about it or we think about it later. But all I want people to do is get your brain working, and then you go into the basic process of fact finding. Before you express a conclusion or react to something, give yourself enough time to kind of catch your breath, take a step back, and go get the facts.
Right.
And it makes living so much easier. It's hard to do with depression, but that's why with depression, I talk so much about a network and a network of people, your advocates, or that special person for you, family and friends that are going to be there that you can call and say, hey, this is not going well today. Yeah. And they're willing to be there for you. That network is so important.
Right. And, another thing you said, which is something that I've told people, for months now, I've been trying to harp on like the need for this because I see it as well. It's like we're from just a general health standpoint, we're so overwhelmed and our stress level gets too high simply because we've got so many things going on. And we say that we're busy when we don't have to be, right? We're busy for busyness sake. And so like slowing down our lives and to be able to say like, it's okay to just sit and do nothing for a little bit.
You have to catch your breath. We have created a society that's performance-based, and we believe we need to be going all the time.
Right.
And the anxiety or the burnout that can come from that is huge. Yeah. Again, another chapter in the first book, slow down. The first 4 chapters I talk about, slowing down, being honest with yourself. You want to, but you can't do that until you slow down. Because nothing happens with our brain going 1,000,000 miles an hour. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
Then we're looking for all the shortcuts. Then we come to something I call life on autopilot, where we're not making decisions anymore. We're plugging into the same thing over and over again. And when you talk about anxiety and depression and everything else we deal with, it's huge because we're not thinking about what we're supposed to change. The popular phrase now is mindfulness, but it's really conscious mind. It's about getting your mind engaged in what you're doing.
Right.
And those processes I talk about, though, in order to work with the processes, or anything in your life that has a process to get you from A to B, you've got to be able to be thinking about it. And we stopped, or we slowed down, and we're going fast on autopilot. We're doing the same things over and again, and we are at herd mentality. We're following the crowd.
Right. Well, so how much of depression would you say is simply not knowing who you are, right? Like, because you're trying to keep up with the crowd, right? You're trying to, and you can't, because that's really not who you want to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so you wind up in this conflict internally.
Well, that happens. And that actually happens more with anxiety.
Okay.
The crowd, because what that does is now you got to keep up with things. Depression checks out. Depression decides I can't.
Gotcha.
Even if I go into a crowd, I'll be alone in that crowd, is what happens with depression. So, but you're right, that going with the crowd and trying to fit in, it just turns our minds inside out. But what happens is, with depression, even anxiety, it's physical first. People with anxiety are already going fast. Even if you don't see it inside them, they're just, one step to the after the other, but quickly. Yeah. Depression, on the other hand, just slows it down and sits there, and it can't catch up. So the pace, the trying to keep up with the crowd, the envy, the trying to be like other people, it's all in there. But again, those are the things that, when you realize that you have the power to create your own path, you're not. I always tell people, you're not finding yourself. If you think that's going to happen, forget it. Where are you going to look? Right. You're creating yourself. That's what you're doing. And we get in that creative process every day if our mind is engaged. Right. And so how would somebody listening that's maybe that heard the go find yourself, or go, your own true north, like those types of things that we hear, very common things, and they've been told, maybe from teachers or from whatever, you're not creative, you're not and so in their head they're like, how am I going to create something when I don't know what I want or who I am or any of those types of things, right? Where do I start? And that's the question. The first place to start is to purge. People come in the office, and let's just take anxiety as an example, but this really, even to the general scope of our lives, we have to get all the toxic and all the dysfunctional and non-functional things out of our life. But I come in with anxiety, and let's say you come in with anxiety, and I say, let's look at your diet first. And there's your 3 cups of coffee in the morning. Right. And there's your starches and carbohydrates all day long. And then, of course, you crashed about 2:00, so we grabbed an energy drink. Right. And then you went home at the end of the day and maybe ate something. It might have been a good dinner, or it might have been pizza and Coke, and then you sat around and ate some stuff while you watched TV. Right. All of that will contribute to your anxiety. So we purge. That doesn't mean I send them out and I say, now stop doing. We cut it down systematically. But it's the same thing in life. There's the relationships, there's the job, there's the quest for money, there's the need for acquisitions. There, all this stuff that we have coming from the outside in, we think creates it creates who we are, which is not who we are, unfortunately. Right. So I purge. I said, let's just strip all this away. And first they fight me, and then when we start the process, you get the exhale, and they say, I can do this. Right. I don't know who I am yet. I said, perfect. If I told you when you came in, I'm going to strip all the stuff away from you, and we're going to get to build you just the way you want, would you say that was good? They say, yeah. I said, great. We're there. Right. That's what we're doing. It's what the armed services does. You don't go in and they send you out, be a special ops guy. They strip you down. Yeah. And then they rebuild what they want. Now, unfortunately, they don't reverse the process when you come back. So now we have, killing machines. Right. But we, in a positive way, we're stripping out what doesn't work. Yeah. And I still do this every day. End of the day, I have my prayers that I say, and so forth. And I will sit down and I'll say, okay, this didn't work today. or I got to work more on changing that thing.
Right.
When I say that, then I'll say, tomorrow I'm going to do this. And then I go attempt to do it.
Right.
I made that, while I'm in bed laying down, or I made that before I go to bed. Tomorrow I want to start doing this. So I have a little note. So tomorrow I don't get up and go on autopilot again.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a big piece of like staying out of the crowd, is looking at your own life and going, okay, here's the steps that I'm going to take. Doesn't matter what anybody else does. And not the comparison piece of, because, I launched my own business 7 years ago. And at first it was really hard to not just go like, why am I not doing what everybody else is doing? Why am I not as successful? And then you have to stop and go like, oh, but I'm on my path. Right. Exactly. And I'll get there when I get there.
And that's what you do. And here I am on my end in my 60s. And when I was 63, I wrote the first book, and people are my age were retiring. And I say, what are you guys doing? And they say, nothing. I've done something all my life. And here I am taking on a whole new way to do things.
Right. Because
in that process, I'm recreating. Otherwise, I don't know. I sit back and watch the Nostalgia Channel every day, or whatever these people are doing.
Right. Yep.
They drink a little more, they eat a little more. Maybe they go golf, or whatever they do. I don't know. But, it's about recreating every day. You don't have to do it. They'll say, well, am I going to be in my 60s and I'll want to do more? I say, you may retire, then that's okay. What is your path? What's going to make you happy, make you productive? Help you address your family needs, etc. Let's go find who you are. When you find who you are and you see the power there, then you have a tendency to want to turn that onto other people and help them. That's just the way it all works.
Right. Well, and one of the things I'm big on is finding who you are so that you can give back to someone.
Exactly.
Right. And like pass along your knowledge, pass along the things that you've learned, or the trial and errors that you've gone through, so that somebody else doesn't have to go through them as drastically. And I think for me, at least, what I see is that everybody's got different ones. And so if we sit there and say, I want to be like the masses, then there's no individuality.
Not only that, we have now attempted to construct our lives around something that we do not intimately know. If I say the guy across the street, man, he's got it going for him. Look at that. I'm going to be like him. I don't know what happens when he closes the door and goes in his house.
Right.
For all I know, he may sit down and drink himself into oblivion the rest of the day. He may have physical problems. He may have a relationship issue that's not good. A lot of things. So there I am trying to emulate something. Then the other thing is, he got there on some processes. Mm-hmm. I want to be like that. I always tell people, did you decide exactly how that was going to occur? And then they look at me, they was deer in the headlights at that point.
Yeah.
That's his statement. That's his life path. That's good for him.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your power.
Right.
That's what we want to talk about.
And really, I think when you look at it that way, and look at it and say, okay, like what's your power? What's your desires? And what makes you happy? Typically, people will come up with something that maybe they didn't even realize was something they wanted to do.
They might. The first thing I get is they'll look at me and say, I'm not sure. That's why I'm here. I said, okay, fine. Mm-hmm. I'm going to strip some things away. I think there's some stuff in the way here. Let's get that stuff out of there. And let's not try to define what you want to be. Right. Let's just go to your next step. Yeah. And really what happens is you're establishing with people, you're establishing a threshold. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like you're wiring everything up. So when you want to turn the switch on, it illuminates, and they start seeing those things. I'm really a proponent of little steps. Let's do this. Let's just have a plan for every day. And even in the first book, I give them a grid, if you will, where they can can put their, it's a goal grid, and they can put their goals in and their action steps to get there, and how, and I teach them how they can go from step to step to step, redefine the goals. And a lot of people are using that. The bottom line is, I've never met a person yet in over 40 years of doing this. I've never met one person yet that could not attach to the power inside them.
Nice.
They're just not doing it.
Yeah.
Or they're getting to people who are being general, who themselves haven't figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all on a journey, but we have to get to a point where we know what we need to do with people.
Yeah.
And people will respond initially if they think I know where they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Right.
Before, I'm saying in 2-3 months, they're already taking the initiative to
Mm-hmm.
set the tone. They'll say to me, I don't know, do I want to do that? And they'll think, what's he going to say when I didn't want to do that? And I'm going to say, that's great. Even if you're wrong, you're using brain power here.
Right.
That's okay.
Yeah. Well, and like one of the things that I think has to happen for that for somebody to get to that process, and you talk about this, is like staying in the moment, right? Because if you just think about, and I mean, I think a lot of people would relate to the financial side of things, like, right? Like, oh, I want to retire with this amount of money in the bank, or, and so they've got this big, huge dollar value out there 30 years from now, and it's like, that seems really hard to get to because it's this huge thing and it's 30 years, which is like, okay, how many days, how many minutes, like, that you have to get there? But if you look at it and go like, okay, well, if I save, $100 a day or $50 a day or whatever, well, that snowballs and adds up. And taking that same thing to like, I want to be this person in the future. Okay, well, like you said, it's a step by step. Like, what do you have to do today that's going to move you towards that?
We have become destination people. Mm-hmm. We see, I'm going to do this there, and we're all geared for that. But the interesting thing about that is when we get there, it's probably not going to look like what we thought it was going to look like, because it will take time to get there. We may or may not be able to get there.
Yeah.
So my advice to people is just what you said. Let's talk about what you want to do, but let's talk about all the little steps to get there. I have people coming in the office and they're already talking about next summer's vacation. Mm-hmm. And I said, it's December.
Yeah.
You're talking about going when? July. I said, that's 7 months away.
Yeah.
I said, you're going to get about 160 or 70 days of living in there. Mm-hmm. Do they count?
Right.
Do you want to be happy and maximize your potential in all of those days? Or do they just sit back and say, I can't wait till I get there?
Yeah.
So we have to, the key to staying in today, being conscious with, is liking that process. Mm-hmm. I like being in today, the work I'm going to do about today, maybe incremental things that can apply till tomorrow. That's good.
Right.
But I got to love me in today. I got to like me first.
Yeah.
I got to like the world. That's another thing, you got to love yourself. No one knows what that is. No one. You got to create a world you like to live in.
Right.
You got to go in that world consciously every day, make some good decisions, and then you'll get up and say, I feel good about my world.
Yeah.
That will work to something you can call self-love. Self-love is spiritual. It's not all this other stuff. So, getting people there is a much longer process.
Yeah. Well, and is that like, if somebody was to say like, okay, well, I just don't like where I am. I don't like these things and that, like, understanding that you have the power to change that, right? Like, you have the power to change that and make that into something that you do like to be in every day.
What I tell people is, first of all, we're back to listing. Okay, you don't like what's going on in your life. Mm-hmm. Tell me all the things you don't like, but be specific, because once they're with me, I'm not the laid back, kind of counselor. I'm dynamic. Right. I'm in there with them. So I say, okay, fine. You said you don't like your life as it is today. Let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. Because what I'm hearing is you tell me you don't like it, but I didn't hear you tell me that you were going to change it.
Right.
You got stuck in it. But tell me what you're stuck in. And then we'll look at everything you bring up. We'll design the component features that are going to change it. Mm-hmm. And then give you that whole blueprint, if you will, to move it forward. Right. You do have the power to do this. You just aren't doing it. You're not making the decisions, and you're not doing that because you're not defining it and gathering all the information. Define the issue, gather all the information about it, put a plan together. All my books are written that way. Yeah. It starts with the problem. Then I give 4 or 5, maybe 6 pages of a lot of information about it and the things that need to change. Then my last piece in every chapter is my action steps. Based on everything we've talked about, do these things. It's what we should do in counseling. Is what I do with my people in counseling. Right. Based on what you've told me, based on the information we've looked at, maybe researched, it pretty much says that you need to do these things. Here's how you do them. Go do them. Don't expect to get them right. Yeah. Come back and say, hey, I got some of them. I really messed up on the others. Did you get a little bit? All I'm looking for is that you keep giving it the effort, because the effort will eventually give way to the expertise. Right.
Well, and that's another thing that I think people get depressed on pretty easily is this, we'll call it beginner's luck, that we all think that we're supposed to be an expert immediately. Right. And it's whether it's because we see somebody that, what's the saying, like the overnight success, you don't see the 10 years that went into becoming an overnight success. Exactly. You just see the overnight success and you go, oh, I want that. And so when it doesn't work the first time, it's like that depression can build.
It's not supposed to work the first time. Right. It's sort of like the teams that come in and they start winning, and then they get a losing stretch and they don't know how to lose and bounce back from it. Right. We're not supposed to just take it and run with it. I counsel a number of celebrities and they all say just what you said. It's, they don't understand that we get up 4 o'clock in the morning and it may end at midnight. They don't understand that we're a slave to everyone. Be here at that time. Look exactly the way you have to look over here. Right. Now, okay, the project is over. Now go out and start promoting it and go on this play. That's it. And they say, oh, well, you're going on so-and-so show. Well, look at all the glitter. And no, it's not. The preparation for that. And now you're in front and you're getting bombarded with questions. And then you leave there and go to the next one. It is an insane life. Right. And what we see is that 10% glitter on the top, the rest of it on below is ripping their lives apart. Right. Simple as that. So put that in perspective. You come into my office, you say, I want to change this. I say, okay, are you willing to do the work? Right. Because if you are, I'll get you there. Make no mistake about it. Yeah. But if you think we're doing it in 10 easy steps, burn those books. If you think that somehow we're going to, here's the acronym that needs to apply, and the acronym is somebody's catch you, that's their hook. Yeah. Not going to apply to you, I'll guarantee it. After we do the work, if you want to do an acronym and say, that makes me think about it, great. But other than that, it is simply elbow grease. Are you willing to do it? And if you do, here's the key. You're not doing it alone anymore. Right. I got you. Well, and I'll get you there. And I'm that psychologist who you can call off hours. Right. And I'm the guy that they say, I know it's Sunday afternoon. You're probably watching football. What do you want? Let's sit down and let's talk. Because if I do that, they keep working. And it didn't cost me anything. And also, if you get into if this is the profession you decided upon, that should be part of it. Right. Right. Well, you call me. I want to see you call me. I want to see you work. That's great. Right. Well, and that's when you get into the piece that people say, okay, well, because I fall into that too, where it's like, I never work because I don't consider it work. Correct. I just consider it who I am and what it's what I do as part of my life. But I also tell people when they say oh, how often do you work? I'm like, I'm working all the time. Right. I always work, but I never work because it's so much fun to do what I do. And so, yeah, I mean, I do. I have clients that call me, it texts me at night and they know they may or may not get a response right away. But I tell them that's someone else, maybe Al, I am going to respond to you. And if it's a crisis, by all means, because I have a little sign on my desk. It just says phone, so that when I walk in, I pick it up and I look at it, and I keep on doing that, so I don't miss any emergency calls. Right. but again, whether, going back to what we were talking about with anxiety or depression or any other condition, if you're willing to get in there and do the work, it changes. But we just have to know what we're doing when we're bringing these people through it. And, with both those conditions, I start physically, always start physically. Mm-hmm. Because, unfortunately, we have decided that those two conditions are mental health conditions. They're physical conditions first.
Right.
And when you calm the body down, then the brain can get to work. The unfortunate part about medicine is when it calms the body down, it also has an effect on neurology. So the brain can suffer. You may not be able to focus as well, all the memory things, all that kind of stuff. So they may get your body down and you don't want to jump out of your skin or you don't want to kill yourself. But in the meantime, got the side effects. So, I just want people to understand with it, go physical, purge, get all the junk out of your life. Don't feed the beast, if you will. And then let's start getting a plan to move everything forward.
Right. And so, and I know a lot of people would be like, okay, well, because I look at it from a health standpoint, sleep is also a very important piece.
Absolutely.
Of it, right. And depression can lead people to be like, oh, they'll typically tell themselves, I'm lazy, I'm not good for anything, I'm just going to lay down and sit in my bed and just do nothing, in the severe cases. And like, okay, well, how do you balance that? Like, well, how am I supposed to sleep when I'm resting all the time because I can't get up to do anything? Right?
Yeah. And that's where that network, those advocates that come into play, and where counseling comes into play. You're right. I'm worthless. And unfortunately, now the physical part of you engages. A body in action stays in action. A body that's at rest always feels tired because you told your body to always feel tired.
Yeah.
So it won't do anything. So incrementally, we're going to start, the plan. I don't care if you get up and the only thing you're doing is walking around and dusting this or whatever, go out for a walk. I build very, very small victories into it.
Right.
And then the key is to get that body in action.
Yeah.
When I get people who are depressed to get into action and a little exercise program if they can, and do it with other people and know that you're not going to want to do it. You're going to try to resist. You're going to have people try to help you and you're going to try to shut them down. That's all part of it. Just try to take one little step. I got to get you in motion. I haven't had a person who with anxiety that I haven't been able to move through, and my people with depression are all making good strides. Some take longer. Some it's pretty bad. The chemical imbalance is severe. Yeah. It's been a family thing. Sometimes it's coupled with anxiety or other things, hormonal imbalances, what have you.
Right.
So sometimes we have a lot of work to do before we put everything in perspective. But that's the part that has to happen. People go into counseling, go into doctors' offices, and the whole picture is not presented. We get part of it. And when we get part of it, we start moving with that, not realizing that the other part that we didn't uncover comes in and sabotages it. So I like to have them understand the entire picture so that they can see how this affects it and that affects it and all those kinds of things.
And one of the things you said was the small victories. And I think a lot of people don't, whether it's depression, anxiety, or just any other part of life, that they're struggling trying to get to a level of success that they want to get to, is at the end of the day, they go, oh, I didn't get anything accomplished today, or I didn't get all these things, like the negative side, because we tend to focus on those things. And we forget the small victories, right? And like a lot of times, and I know that I started to do this several years ago from a business standpoint, going like, okay, I had these failures. I can focus on all these things. Or I can go, wait, but I did accomplish this, and this today. Let's focus on those things and build on that tomorrow. And sometimes that can be for somebody that is at a severe depression standpoint, that could be simply, I got outside for an hour today.
Correct. We have a kind of a performance threshold thing that we all plug ourselves into. I'm supposed to do at least this much. Mm-hmm. I need to get there. Mm-hmm. And if I don't get there, I refuse to allow myself to believe that I'm efficient or worthy, or that I can get things done. So it's not about that. You'll establish that based upon all those little successes. You'll get to the point where you increase the difficulty factor, take on some things that maybe you wouldn't have taken on before. That comes down the road and you will get there. The key in the beginning is just to get in action. Doesn't matter what you're doing. It's to get your body to be a body in action. So it can take on some more things. Get your mind willing to say, okay, I'll do this. Oh, the sink is full of dishes. I'll get that done today. I typically don't. I'll do that. And if I can get the dishes done every day, and with depression, now we also talk about the importance of the action. Why would I even want to do the dishes? That accomplishes nothing. That's all I'm able to do. While you guys are out there, you're out creating things. You're in, you're singing, you're in sports, you're doing, and I'm doing the dishes. I'm not doing that. I don't want to, and I'll just go sit in, space on some type of a TV program or whatever. I'll be on my phone for 3 hours. I didn't have the time. All that kind of stuff. We have to just push the rest of the world aside. And there's that creating that path again. We stay on it. We decide what we're going to do. It's a nice way to live. Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the key pieces to that is understanding that no matter where you are in life or what your situation is, or your gifts, or if you want to call them non-gifts, because I wasn't gifted what other people were, but we're all worth something. We've all got worth, we've all got value, and we can all provide something to someone. We just have to figure out what that is.
We're working our way through the football playoffs, and the Super Bowl will come. And we watch this and we say, see, look at what they're doing. Now we're back to that. Since they were 4. And now 20 years later, they landed in the pros. And 3 or 4 years later, there's that $70 or $100 million contract, and you're saying, I don't have talent. A lot of those people thought they didn't when they were 4 or 5. They competed. Some of them didn't make the Pee Wee leagues and all that kind of stuff. They just didn't quit. What's the secret for success? Don't stop. That's as simple as that.
Well, and that's true. And the people that have listened to my episodes know I'm a runner. And one of the things that I'm most excited about, and people seem to ask me, especially most recently, because I'm posting a little bit more about it, because I'll be 50 in June. And when it's funny, the older you get, you start realizing I want to turn this old so I can get to the newest age bracket and be the young guy in the age bracket and be the fastest guy. Right. And so I'm I can't wait till I get 50, because then I get a shot at being a national champion in the 50 to 54 age bracket. And if I can run what I did this next summer, I've got a legitimate shot at doing that. So I'm pretty excited about it. And I've been chasing that since I was the honorable mention All-American in high school. I've been chasing that for years and haven't got to it. And I already know that, okay, well, if I don't get it in the summer, well, I'm just going to keep going because I've still got time. I'm just going to keep chasing it.
And you're talking about chasing the goal, but I'm also hearing that you're saying, I really love getting in there and working my butt off to do that. I'll be 69. Before we started this interview, I just came down from downstairs where we have our little training center, and I put my hour worth of workout in that I do 6 days a week. So, it's practicing what you preach. And I tell people at this stage of my life, I can still hang upside down and do 40 sit-ups. And they say, I'll never get to that. I said, why not? I'm not special. I just keep doing it. That's all. It's as simple as that. I have friends that do run, and they're now they're my age. And they're still going, and they've run, 30 or 40 marathons. And I say, why do you do it? Because I love it. And once you get into it, the mind adapts to it. It starts to like it. I don't even worry about setting goals anymore. I maximize whatever I can every time I'm down there, but I only want to be in that room. That's the key. That's loving the day you're in. That's that conscious part of it. I'm going to go do that. That's what I do. And that's going to work its way into my entire program. So, again, little steps. I start people there. I help purge, get the junk out. So we're not working against ourselves. And then we start setting those little steps and stop worrying about, I'm going to be the next LeBron or whoever you want to talk about, because you're not, or maybe you will. I don't know.
Yeah. But it's about, like you said, it's about understanding that, like, I can only do what I can do today. Right. I want to get to something, but I'm going to enjoy today. I'm going to do what I can to build towards tomorrow, but I have to do it today and stay in today.
And enjoy it while that's the key to all this. Yeah. I like to put a lot of things in my day. I enjoy that. But it's not a crazy, at the end of the day, my God, I'm falling apart, but it's just one thing after another, and you build a life that you like.
Yeah.
But I can't build, I'm not a runner. I'm never going to be a runner.
Mm-hmm.
My friends, I'm not trying to compete with them.
Yeah.
They're not going to be lifting weights and doing what I do.
Right.
At this stage of that's my statement. They have their own.
Right.
They'll post something. I'll say, hey, that was great. Or I'll talk to them. Hey, how'd you do in that run? Hey, I'm loving it.
Right.
I had one guy just like you. He got real close to being a national champion in his age bracket when he got to 60. And it's just, there's been a lot of people that checked out, so I have a better chance. And and he felt good. And he knows in his own mind it wasn't the same level of competition like when he was 20s and 30s.
Sure.
But the longevity and say, gee, 30, 40 years of running and I'm still doing it. And I might just be the best of the people that continue to do it. There's a lot to say for that.
Yeah.
But you keep on doing it. That's the key.
Right.
Never stop.
Right. And if somebody hasn't started, just start today on whatever it is that thing is, that, whether it's an athletic thing or reading books or whatever. And, one of the things that I know people going back to the, beginner and becoming an expert at it and that kind of thing, like several years ago, I was not a reader, like for years, decades, like just would not read for fun at all. And then once I started my business, I was like, okay, well, I need input from people. And, when you start a business, you don't have a lot of extra funds to go pay for this high class mentor or this kind of. And so it was like, okay, go to the library, get books from people because they're telling you everything they know in this subject or that subject. And so I was reading, from Tony Robbins and, all these different guys, like, okay, how do I build a business? And at first, it was like, okay, just, I want to read for 20 minutes a day. Like that was the goal. Just read for 20 minutes a day. And then I realized it went from like, okay, that 20 minutes at first was like 5 pages. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is a struggle. This is rough. And now 20 minutes is like, sometimes I can get through a book in 30 minutes, because it's been years of doing it. Right.
The theme you and I have been talking about, we haven't said this, but the theme here is repetition over time. That's really what learning is all about. If you want to get good at anything, you have to continue to repeat the process, accelerate it when you can, make it more difficult when you can, and never quit.
Yep.
Your brain then adjusts. Our brains adjust to whatever we decide to do with it, whatever energy we provide it with. That's where it adjusts. So if we say, I identify this and I'm going to stick with it, we will eventually become proficient. We have to. Right. It's the way the body's set up.
Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a great way to get over or come out of depression or anxiety, is because you have something you're focused on that's taking you somewhere.
Absolutely. You don't have, your mind doesn't go to that. We don't. One of the things, again, another thing we haven't talked about is that this movement toward everyone saying my mental health. And there's such an obsession on mental health, not on good mental health. That's on, oh my God, I feel this and I have that. And they're all, stop. If you just define what you want to do in your life, you won't have time to go there.
Right.
And the positive energy you are creating will negate all that old stuff, or
Right.
most of it.
Yeah.
And even if you do have some bouts, they'll be minor compared to what you're experiencing right now. It's just defining what you want, creating the program that's going to get you there, sticking with the program, and incrementing it as needed as you go. It's a very simple process, and you may need a mentor. You may need someone to help you through that. That's fine. You know, we're supposed to.
Right. And when you go through that, it's naturally going to, like you were talking about before, purging things. That's going to naturally purge things out of your life, because you're going to realize, why am I doing that? That's not helping me get to where I want to be.
Sure. You know, we were last night, what we were doing, and my wife said, "Did you want a beer?" I said, "No, it's not it's not in me today, because I knew what I had to do tomorrow."
Right.
And if I would, and I'm talking a beer.
Right.
I'm not talking about, 10 beers or a 6-pack or what. I'm just talking about one, but it didn't fit into the plan.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I couldn't have had that if I wanted to, but it didn't fit into what I was doing today. So the purging starts in the beginning, but you also purge as you continue to go, because some of the things that will interfere with or sabotage your plan don't seem to be attractive anymore.
Right.
Because the next day you want to be performing at a higher level, and you can, but if you do something that sabotages that, it's going to bring you down to a lower level, or just have you kind of maintaining, and that gets old after a while.
Right. And then that's when anxiety and depression can start to creep in, because
come right back in.
You're not progressing, and so then those thoughts can start coming back, and and so it's not necessarily something that, like, you see somebody like you and help you work through, get your process created. You're working the plan, you're taking the reins, you're moving along, and it's like, okay, I think I've got it. I'm good. A year or 2 years down the road, it's not to say that something might come up that you just go, oh wait, I need to call Faust again, and just go like, hey, can you help me? Because I've got a bump in the road.
And the answer to that is, of course, you got a bump in the road. You're supposed to. I always look at them and say, did you think that you're talking to a person who has no bumps?
Right.
All I've done is said, when the bump comes along, I'm not going to react. I'm not going to make myself crazy, so to speak, over it. I'm going to take a step back, look at it, and design a little plan to deal with the bump. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, I'm not sure I can do that. And I said, what do you think you just did when you called me?
Right.
And then the light bulb goes on. I didn't just stay in this. I did something to move past it.
Right.
And of course, their answer will be, yeah, but I came to you for help. I said, yeah, but that's what you're doing in your life right now. Right. So you took the plan as you were working it, consciously made a call to me and said, this happened. Let's look at it. What do you think I should do to start working with it?
Right.
Now, I just presented that to you a little differently. Does it sound pretty good? And the person will say, I never thought of it that way. Mm-hmm. So any movement forward is movement.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And if you need someone, myself or whoever, to lean on for a while, that's great. You do that somewhere down the road. You're going to be someone else's person to lean on.
Right.
And then you start to see that you've arrived.
Yep. And that's, I think, when you can look back and go like, okay, now I get what, it's going to sound a little cliche, but it's like, I get what life is about.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because like I said earlier, and you've said it, it's like, life is about being able to help other people through their problems from your life experiences.
Correct. And people will feel unworthy. People will feel that they're going to bother us if they call. And when they don't call, I kind of lovingly scold them. I say, you didn't call me. Why?
Right.
Now, and I'll joke and I'll say, that really hurts my feelings. I guess you don't like me. No, that's not it. I just didn't want to bother you. I said, when you came into the program, I told you this is how it will work. You're going to get those things. If if you're going to see me on a Thursday and something happens on Monday and you don't call me, by the time you report it on Thursday, it's old. 3 days of living have come between us.
Mm-hmm.
What happened either didn't get fixed, and if it didn't, it's going to happen again. But if you would have called me and said, this just happened, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm this weak person that, no. And if you want to think that way, fine, use my strength for now. I got enough to go around for you, and then you'll get it. And then there'll be those times where it comes up and you say, I can call him and I'll do that if I need to, but I don't need to right now because I think I know what to do and I feel good about it.
Yeah.
That's where we're needing to go.
Yeah. So I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to give you the opportunity to let people know how they can get a hold of you and get your books and your information, and learn more about how to fix themselves with the information that you provide.
Best way to get to me is my website. It is my name, FaustRuggiero.com. Everything about all 3 books are there. Everything about me is there. They can even find excerpts from the book, so they can look and say, okay, this is what he's writing. Does that look like it's good for me?
Right.
There's a contact link. Anyone wants to contact me, by all means, do that. I do get back to people.
Awesome. Well, I will put the link for that in the show notes so people can just click on it and get right to you. Is there anything else that we didn't hit on that you would want people to know about, helping themselves through depression or anxiety or really any other mental health issue?
The one key is, that we didn't say is don't try to do this alone. If you think about it, that's what you've been doing and it doesn't work.
Right.
Don't go to people who are going to be toxic, people who are emotionally involved with you and have been the ones that said, oh, you really make me so angry and you don't do this, right? Don't go to them and try to please them. That's not going to work. Right. If you have a problem and you can't solve it, get help. Be willing to say, I'm worthy. I'm worth this. Mm-hmm. People will want to hear me. And even if I've got to go to that counselor or whoever, they're willing to listen to me. I'm going to go do this. Take the step and do something to make you feel good. You deserve it.
Right. Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. And one thing that I think a lot of people forget is that in any aspect of life, in any industry, in anything, the people that have truly been successful all had a coach or a mentor. They all had somebody helping them get to where they got. And
they're smart enough to keep people in the mix. In my first book, I have this little quote. It's a chapter on wisdom. And I always say that we have to be humble enough to ask for help, because, we get arrogant. We think we're going to do it. And arrogant, I always say, is the student that becomes the teacher and then think they know everything, where humility is the student who becomes the teacher and remains a student. So I do this for a living. I advise people, but I have no problem saying, I'm not sure I know what to do with this.
Right.
Because I'd much rather get through it, find a solution and carry it.
Right. That's awesome. So thank you so much, Faust, for being a guest.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.